Welcome to today's episode of Owning Your Menopause. I'm really excited to be talking to today's guest, who is a complete trailblazer in the world of menopause. She is someone who is transforming the conversation from silence and stigma into power and possibility, and is a passionate advocate for women in midlife, known for honest storytelling, empowering content, and a strong community she's built around her shared experience. Through her platform, she has become a trusted voice, offering support, inspiration, and a reminder that we're not meant to go through this chapter alone. Whether she's speaking about her own personal journey or lifting others up, she's here to remind us that menopause can be a time of reconnection, strength, and growth. I am so excited to be welcoming Emma Neville to the podcast today. Emma, thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you. Last we get to meet and chat. So yeah, no, I'm excited and a little bit nervous, but yeah, let's do
Yeah,
this.
don't be nervous. I think it's funny,
Okay.
isn't it? Because we or you, I've seen you talk, I've seen you, at festivals and clips at festivals, and I know that confidence for so many women navigating midlife is something that takes a huge hit. And actually, speaking from my own experience, I'm still terrified when I go and do talks or when I sit on panels. But I think it's very much something that we do to help others see that it's okay to have lost that confidence. It's okay to be nervous. You can still go out there and tell your story.
Yeah, definitely. I always say go back to my why. And my why is kind of like if a pregnant woman in that day and somebody goes and says, I've gone home and I've spoke to my husband about how I feel, or been to see my boss, or I'm going to go and see the doctor, I think, right, my nerves and everything has been all worth it. Yeah, definitely true that. And, I do identify with that. You do lose your confidence within this time. Parts of me, I do remember, I didn't know parts of me through this early stages of it. And at some days you think, when will I ever get that back? But yeah, I do see it now as a growth, and I kind of call it my wise woman years, where I feel like I know myself better than any time and stage of my life. And that really excites me actually. And it's it's time that it is an awakening, really. It can bring us purpose, belonging, and our authority back. And I feel that that's what stage I'm at now with this, really. And that's why I'm here to advocate for the younger woman having an early menopause, being diagnosed with POI. It was so important that I told my story because it is a midlife phase, yes, but it can happen at many different ages, as we're, hearing.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. And I love that wise woman years. Thanks for sharing that. I might steal it. Could you give us your yeah, I guess, so that if listeners don't know, what was your story coming into menopause, and so that we can get, yeah, Emma's backstory.
Yeah, definitely. I'll keep it short 'cause it's a long one, and I try and
No,
keep
don't
things short,
worry.
but in kind of a quick run through, slobbering on. But yeah, so it kind of started when I was training to become a counsellor. I was doing my studies. I had a huge portfolio to get through and 100 client hours to do to pass. And it was in classroom. And then COVID came along as part of this journey. So for me, it was learning all different new platforms, Google Teams, Meets, all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such an in the room person. I am a real visual learner. So for me, I was thinking, I'm not going to get through this at all. Why I say that is because my brain fog, which I didn't know was called that at the time, I just felt really foggy. My memory was really lapsing, and I was thinking, how am I ever going to get to the end of this study? How will I get there? I don't know. And I just had to trim down my kind of day into having 20-minute spurts and thinking, right, come away from it and go back to it. Now, hence this story with the brain fog. This was my most severe symptom, really, for me. But my period had stopped, but I'd not acknowledged that. They'd been coming up to like that 12-month period with the odd just spotting. That was all that was really there. But I just put that down to, again, stress and just, hearing people say, oh, you can, make your periods delayed and things like that. So the signs were kind of all there, but I just wasn't. I think this new phase of life, I've been in education for 3 years. It was kind of a new platform to me. And then lockdown came with for me, I didn't enjoy it at all. Homeschooling school was great, but just all those other things that added into a day, your husband home more and all those other things that you used to, it was just like wow. And then this fog and just trying to get through. So it was, yeah. basically, to the story goes that I just thought I don't feel right. I was experiencing quite a lot of low mood dips. The day would start okay, and I'd just dip off within an hour or two, and I think nothing's really happened. Like, what's changed? It was the matter with me. Um,
How
joint
old were
pain.
you, Emma, at this
So
point? How
coming up
old?
to 40, yeah, sorry, so
Coming up to
just
40.
for
Yeah,
40, yeah.
okay.
So I was looking at this phase. I was actually quite excited to be turning 40. I've never really enjoyed big birthdays, but this one I thought, right, 40, I've heard so many people, thriving. And so, yeah, and I do feel we are thriving, but, when symptoms are in the way of things, I was just like not feeling myself. So I went to see my doctor, and I've got a great relationship with my doctor, and we ran some blood tests, and they came back normal, which I'm now looking into bloods. Bloods can go, I could go today at 12 and I could go tomorrow at 12 and they can come back so sporadic different readings. So I just thought, I feel bloody normal. This isn't normal, what I'm feeling like. So I leaned into mental care. And again, long story short, I was also waiting for some gynae issues. So I decided I was going to go through like a Wellman check, kind of go down and check things out. And I'd, there was changes going on, as I say, but I just thought I need to know that make this clear. So I went down and I kind of got been advised about this. Let's have a look at your ovaries. Let's check things. So I had the hysteroscopy, and that was kind of the day when everything changed. I just remember the sonographer kind of person, doing it, just saying, there's no eggs in your ovaries, and I just thought, gosh, what do you mean by that? And then this later, the diagnosis came from the gynecologist of the POI, but within that space and then that day, I just thought, what does that mean for me now? Like, I'm coming up to, a 40, like, so my body clock's slowing down. Mother Nature's taken its toll, and I feel very blessed and very grateful. I've got two healthy, gorgeous teenagers, but there is that still little element of you where you think, well, no longer, can Mother
Yeah.
Nature do its job? So it felt in a way there was a lot of acceptance to be taken on from that, a lot of emotional well-being. My symptoms, I just felt like very, very emotional. I'm a very emotional person anyway, but that was just off the scale at the start. And I just really thought, gosh, I need to understand what this means.
I
So
was going to
this
say, yeah, what did you know, I suppose, at that moment when had you had
no.
perimenopause, menopause even
No,
been on your
no.
radar?
So kind of
No.
I was in that perimenopausal phase from, I do believe now looking back, 38, because I remember enjoying 37 and then remember a few changes from 38 onwards. And then obviously for me with the POI coming to 40, so it's like one in 100 under 40 will get this diagnosis. I just thought I need to know like menopause. I had friends who were at this phase of life, but they were at the, the average 50 plus age of this happening. And I thought, well, I got two girls, like I need to, it's imperative that I found out for their journeys. And I just thought, as a woman, why do I not know? Why am I not talking about menopause, So it was something that was not really on my radar. Again, spoke with my mum. We speak 5 to 6 times a day some days, healthy or unhealthy, whatever you want to call it, but we'd never had this discussion. And I just thought, why have I never been here? So it was really interesting, and I went to the gynae, and he obviously explained to me what the best, process was for me now to navigate this. And he just was like, your estrogen is so low. I'll never forget the figure of 39.
Wow.
It's like haunts me that figure. And I actually thought some days I was proud to say I didn't know how some days I was functioning really. Um, but he just said, we need to get you on HRT. This can be now for the next, we didn't really discuss that on the world look, probably for the next 10 years of my life till I reach that 51 UK average, I will be on this. And for me personally, I'm not sat here, it's for everybody, but it's been a lifeline for me. And within 3 months, I remember going to 6 weeks and thinking, and then definitely that 3 month period of starting the process, I just felt like parts of me were coming back.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, yeah, it was quite crazy to think I'd looked at this prescription that was there, and again, for somebody who touched wood, has had a clean bill of health and never been on any meds, it was like a prescription that I had to pick up and get. And there was a lot of acceptance around it as well for me. I didn't want
Yeah.
to take it, yeah.
Thanks for
I just,
sharing that. Do you know what? I feel you gave me goosebumps because I think it is that just that the sort of grief that you talk about. I think this is a conversation that is so important, because I think so many women, if they are having menopause at the right time, as it were, it's not medical, it's not surgical, it's not POI, it's not premature, forget that for some women there can be a grief attached to it, because it is in essence kind of this, like, what's next. And I guess, and if you don't mind talking about it, I guess what I would love to ask is, when you came back from that appointment and you spoke to Gary, you spoke to your girls, I'm assuming, I don't know what age they were,
Yeah.
what was that conversation like? Because I remember getting diagnosed with perimenopause, and actually I was only 42, and I remember thinking, my husband's just going to think I'm washed up. Like, I think there's that element of kind of, because there were no images of strong women like there are now, it felt really scary, kind of going, I'm in perimenopause, and thinking that it's game over. What was your,
Yeah.
yeah, what was
It's
your sort of
it,
situation?
it's kind of really, again, I can remember the day and remember where I was, because it was coming up to a holiday break, school holidays, and we'd gone skiing, and that's when the guy, he rang me back with the because I remember him saying, "Can you speak?" And he said the words were, "You seriously menopausal?" And then he goes, and I thought, "What do you mean?" Like, and I remember thinking, I'm away skiing, and what if I fall now and like have a really bad accident? And I think one of my head had gone kind of, and I came off that call. Completely remember saying, and I don't really like using this word because it's not nice, but I remember saying, "Scary, see, I'm not a psycho." I remember saying
Yeah.
that because I just felt like it was, yeah, it's quite like, well, it takes me back to that moment, but it was just like, I've not gone crazy. I'm not this envisaging all this and feeling all these things. It's real life happening to me. Yeah. So it was a real moment of turning point of, gosh, I need to understand me more now. I need to prioritize my health and my well-being. And yeah, I needed to look in, and as I say, I kind of feel my body was giving me all the symptoms, but I just feel there was so much denial due to my age. I
Yeah, do
wasn't
you know
ready.
that hit? I felt that with you, because I've sort of packed my bags. You know, there were times, because I think we've probably gone through this at similar stages, because mine was a COVID perimenopause too. And like you said, all the meals you're cooking, and, everything everyone does just sort of really intensely annoys you. And it's chaotic and it's crazy, yet you feel so alone. And I think that was one of my scariest things. And one of the things I really hate women talking about, and then we're going to come on to talking about what you've obviously gone on and done. But when you talk about loneliness and that kind of isolation that you feel, people always assume that isolation and lonely is something that happens when you're on your own. I
Yeah.
actually think that isolation and loneliness is harder when you're surrounded by people, because you begin to think, why do I feel so unhappy when I've got all these people that I love and love me around me, and you don't know why you're feeling that. Like, it's the weirdest thing to kind of comprehend.
I say, like for me, judgment's been huge all my life, and I feel like felt so judgmental of myself because I was thinking, I'm bringing the mood down here. Everyone's having a nice dinner, and I would just be sat thinking, the noise of chairs irritating me, and I just wanted to walk away from the table. There were so many different layers. My senses were so heightened,
Yeah.
and I just felt like you say, yeah, like, am I being a nice person? And I know I'm a nice, really kind, loving person, but there was days where you just thought, I'd start the day okay, in the morning I'd get up and then it'd be that, we're going to get in school time, I've got everything ready. And I'd a voice would come to me and I'd think, "It's easy," and I'd be screaming, "We need to leave the house." And then I'd get in the car, I'd drop the girls, and I'd think, I've just ruined their day. I've ruined their morning. And I'd cry and I'd sit in the car and I'd think, that's awful. You awful woman. You've just ruined their day. And I couldn't wait to go back and pick them up because I just felt that complete guilt. Yeah, was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Emma, do you know what? I want to hug you. Like, we're so far away. I'm feeling every ounce of that. Like, it's horrible. And actually, um, I'm going to come on because I want to know, what was that turning point that made you realize you needed something to change? And like, how
Mm.
did you go about that? Um, because you've talked about obviously seeing your GP as well, and HRT, and I also want to come on to lifestyle changes, but which you talk about too. But let's talk about what was Emma's moment where she was like, right, do you know what? I've gone through this. This shouldn't happen. I'm going to use my voice, and talk me through what you've created, because it is incredible.
Well, thank you. No, it was really kind of I think speaking with friends who I remember, like I say, getting my HRT and I'd sat with it for a good 8 weeks thinking, oh, I'm not sure about this. And I remember a friend saying, we just get that bloody patch. And she did say, it's hard, so she had a stick on your ass and get on with it. And I'm just so I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nice." And I was like, I don't know. So I remember I was really grateful to her, but it was kind of like you say that turning point where I thought, right, this is me now. This is where I'm kind of gonna, have to look in and understand what everything's going to look like. And it was just the word menopause. I was, so unaware. So I started researching, and I think there's some great platforms, as we know, and I started looking up doctors on Instagram and things. I followed a few of those and bought some books. And then I decided that I just thought, oh, I've become a little bit menopause mad and everything I seem to speak about. So I did a talk with about 25 friends. Um, and I actually asked at the time, my supervisor for counselling to come along to just stand by my side and just because she'd been on the journey, she was on the patches and things, she got Mary saying, and I was like, will you just sit with me while I just try and it's just a conversation. And after that conversation, my friends were just coming up saying, why have you've not told us any of this? Like, because I am a real private person. And they were like, we didn't know you were so bad. And I was like, well, I kind of just got on with things as such, and I didn't want to bring anyone down and everything. And then I thought, gosh, that's been huge. And then they were saying, like a few of them, that's resonating. I'm going to go and speak to my doctor. And then I just thought, right, I'm going to look into this. And I just literally did fall across a coaching certificate online by Dell Johnson, and I thought that sounds interesting. And I'm a bit safety in numbers personally when I do courses. Again, this fear of judgment. So I remember asking how many were on it, and she said 14 max, and I thought I could do that. And again, it was online. We're still in COVID. She's in Scotland anyway, and I enrolled and registered, and I just think that was one of the best things where I felt I'd met my tribe. I'd felt so heard and validated in that group. And we'd have a lesson that would drop every week from the endocrine system. We touched on nutrition as yourself, it's a massive topic and we're no experts in that, but just things that we should be eating and helpful things and stuff like that. And it was kind of like, wow. And I felt like I was probably one of the younger ones on there, but I would ask them like, oh, I didn't even know at that stage because you get this prescription. We didn't know there was like different brands of patches, and someone saying, oh, the Everolls were giving me rushes, and I was saying, that's me. And I was thinking, oh, so there's a I can choose. And I got a little bit excited because I was thinking, really tells you about this and in this arena. And yeah, it was just one of the best things. And it was 3 months and, it was quite intense. And I just thought, wow, the body is incredible. I remember school days, like talking about endocrine system and science and things, but I was like, my body is powerful. This is amazing what it does. And just learning that, the estrogen cells are all over our body. And I thought, gosh, I need to support this. This is huge.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think that you've kind of hit the nail on the head with that for women navigating this life stage is understanding actually what is happening to our bodies. Because I think
Yeah,
there can be at this life stage so many, we blame ourselves for so much. We think,
yeah,
like you said, with your situation, you think that it's you, and until you actually understand that this is a normal transition and these hormonal shifts and these physiological changes that are happening are out of your control, but you can do something about them, obviously, if you take hold. But like you say, it's getting access to that information. So that's obviously what's led you
I did
further,
a coaching.
having
Yeah,
to do the coaching.
I did the coaching, and then I thought, okay. And then I heard it was like menopause awareness day was coming up, and I thought, I'm gonna go. I like had a bit of I started to think about things, and I thought, oh, I knew my name already, and I kind of thought, this is me. And I don't really explain this a lot, but I love my name, Emma, and me is M backwards. So I knew always if I was going to do something, it'd have my name in it. And then it just felt so relevant that actually this is me now. This is who I am. And as I say, from being so private, I pressed go on the 18th of October last year, and I cried for a week because I thought, what the hell have I done? Because I just thought it wasn't even about me. I wasn't bothered if I got 2 followers. There was nothing about numbers for me. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
It was just the overwhelm of people sharing. And as a counsellor as well, I felt, and I still do, I feel so answerable to these women who are sharing their lives with me, which is such a beautiful place. in a way to, own that and to think. And I just feel so proud of the community that I've created there that, when you see someone that's took 6 to 8 lines explaining their journey and you think, wow, and I respond to every one of those comments. It is just me doing it. And I feel like if I've had a post and I've not, I'm like, oh, I must go on now and have that time slot to do that. And I think it's because it's within me and I am a little bit of a rescuer at heart. I do know that through my counselling journey, but I'm quite proud of it really in a way. And yeah, I just think it was to advocate for that 40 plus woman who might be at this phase and just thought, you know, the amount of times that people said to me too young, and I just wanted to get them and say, please listen to me, I'm not too young. Yeah, what
Yeah.
are you talking
And
about?
I was going to say, I think that I think that is amazing. And I think it's great that you've used, you're using your voice and you're doing that. And it is interesting because the first podcast I did, my first
Yeah.
episode was actually with Darren Goff and Anna Goff. And
Mhm.
obviously Darren being a sports personality and being in the media. And I thought that was a good one to do because we need to bring men into the conversation.
Yes.
What is your stance on that, and how, I guess, Gary has supported you? I saw your lovely Happy Place. I saw you do it with Fern Cotton. I wasn't actually there, but obviously watched all those clips.
Yes.
Has that, obviously that support has been amazing, but I also feel, what is your take on that in bringing men into the conversation? Because 51% of the population go through menopause, but it does impact 100% of us, and we need to bring men on this journey with us.
Definitely. And I think, I don't know whether you did hear Gary's comment, what he said. So, so pragmatic and practical is so black and white. It was a no grey with him. He just said, well, aren't you glad you got it out of the way now? And I just wanted to, yeah, you can imagine. And I was just like, okay, right, I'll let you leave that. And I left the room and it was just his whole answer around it. So it was really important and he has been really supportive. But again, it's for you to support yourself and that awareness piece of, get to learn together if you can, if you do have that, get a book and look. I think, the Davina show was brilliant. Loads of people have watched it and that really got the ball rolling and, sit down and watch something or you know, within the workplace, I'm going into organizations and doing these talks. And the biggest thing is when I see, a man come in the room and he's sat there and he's CEO of this company and he's saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to go home and speak to my wife because I didn't, or we really need to champion, these, women in the workplace is forming these groups and they're seeing there's so many that are coming together and making the spaces within the workplace happen having menopause champions, places that coffee mornings where you can just have time out. It's crucial. And, most of our days spent in our working life in the workplace. So if you're struggling like the whole of that day, how are you going to want to get up and do that the next day? It's just not it's not fair, not right to say. So it's having that rapport and that understanding with your bosses and your team leaders and just saying, I'm having this phase where I know this month my hormones are all over the show. Please bear with me. And it's just having a little bit of a script, I say, or something that you feel comfortable to just say, just give me a bit of a minute,
Yeah,
I
I was
love
going
the
to say,
brand.
what would you suggest to somebody? Let's take two scenarios. So, um, how if would a husband approach a wife if he had
Yeah.
picked up on something, because I can imagine if sort of my husband had ever come up to me and go, maybe a perimenopausal, I'd probably given him a bit of a, right hook. So there's sort of the one case scenario, and we could talk about that in both ways, and then also in the workplace.
Yes.
Again, and I think it's always funny because whenever I've been asked this question, it's always like, how do you approach your line manager if you're having symptoms? But actually, reversing that, how does a line manager perhaps approach an employee? Like you're saying, if we can educate more within the workplace, it's a really delicate conversation to have. What
Yes.
would your advice be?
Yeah, good one. And I do empathise in you so often. But on this one, guys, I do feel that how do they understand? We've got totally different anatomies, we're just so built so differently, aren't we? So, like, in the home life, I think it is just having a little bit of a language around saying, I don't understand it, but I'm here for you. Is there anything I can do to help? Or do you want me to just go away and leave? Just having those normalized conversations and you being real and saying, as that day's going on, or if you wake up in that shitty mood where you just don't want to be on top note, just owning it and saying, I'm not gonna be the best thing today, but what I'm giving is my best, and that's all I can give. And sometimes it's just letting them people know around you that, that is you today. And that could change tomorrow, and hopefully it will, but it's not always the way. And, you know, I think it's just that learning together and just to trying to become that it's a team, it's teamwork, it's support. And I always think if you've got children, if it was your child's problem, you'd be like all over it and you'd be both there like, oh, we need to look at this and we need to find out. So why shouldn't we come together on this phase as well? And within the workplace, I think it is again, I have this conundrum of pause, which I like to say, and it's prepare yourselves with your colleagues. Ask them if there's have these open conversations, non-judgmental, what's going on for you? How can I help? Um, ask the questions. The A is the ask. It's, as I say, making them feel empowered within that space and that workplace and come together as a collaborative. The U is understand. Try your best to understand. So for yourself as a boss, try and do some research, join some forums. There's so many businesses doing online things, or having a look into it yourselves. And S is support. You've got to show that support for the person, even though you might not even understand it all. But have that appointment together and literally say, right, we're going to work on this. We're not going to leave it another month. Let's, book a date in the diary to see how you're feeling in, you know, bi-monthly or however way your work is. Um, Try to understand it the best way that you can. And the E is evaluate. So evaluate it, and like you say, don't leave it for them to think, oh, I've got to chase up and I'm going to feel inadequate because I'm having another really bad month. Put a date in that diary together and say, right, we're going to have this follow up, and I am here. Lean into it, and it's just really normal, really, just to have that kind of framework to say, right, this is how we're going to structure. You're really important to me because,
Yeah.
1 in 10 women are leaving work, and that is just horrendous. It's like, and the fear of kind of this judgment of like, you're capable and have been able for, say, you've worked in your workplace 20 years, you can do that job like the back of your hand. But then when your hormones are, having these roller coaster rides, it's like, I don't feel like I can do this anymore. Then that fear of somebody younger than you coming along who you feels better, and that comparison, you're like, and you can understand why they're leaving because they just don't feel heard. They don't feel heard probably within themselves. They don't know parts of them, and they're not feeling supported and heard within the space. So it really
Yeah.
is a collaboration of coming together if you can.
I really like that. I think that's amazing advice. And I think for anyone listening, really take that on board. And I guess kind of surmising what you said is to not be afraid to ask for help and to,
Mhm.
again, menopause is a natural transition that's going to happen to everybody. So to not to not worry. And I think that kind of brings me on to sort of I guess in a sort of full circle, and as I always
Yeah,
do, I like going on lots of different places. But that sort of fear of asking for help, I think also
yeah,
translates to that home environment where, again, as midlife women, we often hit this transitional stage and we are without doubt at the bottom of the pile. And the reason I sort of that looped into that asking for help is because, when you have got your partner and we are angry at maybe, having to, I don't know, empty another dishwasher again and put on another load of washing and then do the washing. And then I think, we're both mums here, the emotional baggage that we have for children. And I'm not saying that my husband isn't supportive, and I know that yours is very supportive too. But we as parents, we do cater for everybody else's needs. And I think that so many women don't realize that they've hit this life stage because they've been so busy caring for everybody else and putting their needs last and not asking for help. That's when menopause hits
yeah,
really hard. And I think as much as I have these conversations and we want to try and change the narrative, it's very difficult to when you have always been that the homemaker and the caregiver, and
yeah,
as you've said, the person that always wants to heal and make everything okay. It's very hard
yeah.
to pull yourself up and put yourself somewhere on that list of to-dos.
Completely agree there. And I think we are that sandwich generation. I love that phrase because we really are that midpoint of, probably most people come to 40s, are at the peak of their careers and, they've they're at that stage of like they're thriving and everything, and then this transition is happening to you. So it's about that education piece, about informing yourself, and don't letting it hit like I did without any unawares of it. There's so many things we can try and do to prep in that time. And there's loads of tests and things that can be done now. And I know again it's right, and I don't feel it's down private health routes, but there are things that we can kind of try and look at to you know, navigate this a little bit better within our systems. But I think for me, it was kind of like coming up to that, 40 stage where I did believe I would be thriving, and I do believe now. But it's like that processing of it. It's hard because it takes its toll on you. It takes on your energy, your emotional and physical levels. But if I'd have prepared myself and done some research and, read a few more books or listen to some more podcasts as we do now, there's so much that's actually overwhelming that we can do. It's really good to get yourself now. So I say to any 30-year-old, I know you might not think it's now, but please just try and do a little bit. Do you understand your cycles? Do you understand, what is going on with your body? Are you tracking things? And just any change is a change. And I used to think, I probably have some really silly questions over time, but no question is silly. If you're unsure, ask. And we've got really limited time within this. Always seek medical advice, but we've got such limited time within that appointment time that sometimes it's not long enough. And we're hearing people having to go back and back, but we also as women need to take responsibility of ourselves and our bodies. And I think there's many that I've met who just don't even know when the last period was. And I'm like, what? Maybe because I was so regular and that's why I was aware. But it's something that we need to know. Yeah, we
Yeah.
really should be aware of it.
I,
Get to know you.
you're right, but all
Yeah.
the young girls they have these apps and they're
Yeah.
tracking their periods, aren't they? And then I kind of think there's that stage. Obviously, you want to have a baby, so you're like, "Come on, let's go. Now's the right
Yeah.
time." When it's all, and then we've sort of feel we've had our babies, and then that's it, right? We don't
Yeah.
then track, and I think that is the thing is that if we, like you say, have more conversations around menopause and keep women tracking, there's going to be
Yes.
less. They're going to understand, and they're going to have a pattern. Just kind of on that, did you make any different lifestyle? What were your lifestyle changes that you might have made when you did realize? Because obviously, I don't stop banging on about lifting weights and eating protein, and for most women, perhaps giving up
Yeah.
alcohol or cutting back, because that
Definitely.
advice we're not given. Like, and I
No.
feel that that's where we really need to drive this message. And obviously, I actually have osteopenia in both my hips, so therefore weightlifting is non-negotiable. And obviously, the research behind HRT in terms of bone health, I will continue with my HRT, but I'm not going to rely on that solely as my need. What lifestyle changes have you made?
Yeah, so I think, like you say, I did have to take a step back and look. For me, I was a quick hit girl, sweat it out, and lockdown. I think I was over exercising, so just trying to get through the day. I was doing 3 classes a day, and that's when I think sometimes, gosh, I was stronger than I think I don't know I was doing it basically. But looking down at my skin and thinking, is that my leg as my skin and my knee was really saggy, and I thought, oh, everything's going a bit right here. So I had to change my regime. But I think it's the pillars that we need to look at, movement, lifestyle, um, and, exercise and diet. There's so many different things, social connection, we're connecting with people. We've lost that so much. Community. Are we getting out and having conversations with people? We're all just texting and emailing and going via, but I'm such a pick up the phone. If I'm in the car and like, I'll ring you, I want to speak to you, I want to hear your voice. And I know that's not always attainable and we're all busy. But I've had to change, yeah, exercise was one. So now it's my reformer Pilates. I absolutely adore it. It's my happy place, I call it. I'd like to get more yoga in, but I think for me, it's my Pilates. I absolutely, yeah, love that. So it was slowing down that kind of crazy, even though the cardiovascular is so important, but it was doing more walking for that. And it was kind of like, just felt like, putting some hills in there every now and then and just building my strength up that with that. And like you say, lifting weights, I love that we're in a strong, word strong is like brilliant now. It's like, yes. And I think that's what it was. So sometimes I suppose it's lifting that bit heavier weight, but not doing as many reps, but just challenging yourself to lift a little bit heavier. And I definitely can see a difference. I feel like my body shape's changed, but I've never felt as strong as I do as now, which is like kind of a different transition. And it's an acceptance piece, but I'm like, but I'm doing this for my 80-year-old self that hopefully, please God over here then, but who, won't have these, really bad fractures and falls. I've looked into my mum's had a few lately, and I think, I wonder if my mum was given HRT, would hers be different? And it does make you think, and you start thinking things through differently. So I think for that generation, it's get strong now. The 30 plus, like you say, get yourselves lifting. Um, get those bands and just standing and just doing so many reps a day. There's like you can doesn't have to be within the gym environment, does it? As you show with everything you
Yeah.
do, yeah, it could just be at home with a couple of few bits, and we can make it happen. And then for me, again, it was I think it was taking some breaks out of the day when I was feeling this overload and not feeling guilty about that and just thinking, I can't be in screen time anymore. I'm going to go and make myself a herbal tea or a cup of tea or something and just, just having 5 minutes to yourself.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to get more meditation in. I'm not going to say here that I do that, but I would love to try and, I've got a couple of apps that I lean in every now and then. But I think, like you say, even just I find with my Pilates, my breath work, 'cause I'm really concentrating on that. So breath work has been really key into the training for me, and that's I actually feel like I can breathe better. I've like learnt new techniques through that, which has made me feel stronger within this, within this space. And if you can set in a nighttime routine, but again, it's not always possible. My girls are out training 9 at night quite a few nights of the week, sorry, and I'm not always coming and I'm still like high on alert. So if you can set that environment and just wind down, light a candle, make it dark, have your magnesium bath if you can. Um, magnesium has been my non-negotiable. Magnesium glycinate, yeah, literally an hour before bed. That is something that I've done, and it's really helped me with my sleep. Yeah, because I
I
was
love
really
that.
struggling.
I love that. And I think, they are such top tips. And I think it is that thing where you've given 5 or 6 little nuggets, but it seems so overwhelming. And I think that's one of the things that I hear. I know you will a lot from women, but do this, do that. It becomes very overwhelming. I loved what you said, and I'm going to sort of pick up on that, which was your body shape has changed, but you're stronger than you are. And I think that is the kind of the key. It is that self-acceptance at this stage. My body shape has completely changed, but I am the strongest mentally and physically than I've ever been. I think the problem we have is the noise on social media, and I think we can be too quick, and I'm totally guilty of it, of comparing ourselves and kind of thinking, well, hang on a minute, we're all going through that, and then she looks like that, and she's doing that, and taking that, and doing this, and it's getting that evidence-based information that is correct, that is right, and social media is a very confusing place, and as I say, very overwhelming. I think, especially for women of our age navigating menopause, because we're obviously it comes up on our feeds, but feel very targeted with certain ways. Obviously, you've created an amazing community where they can get the correct evidence-based support. Like you've said, you're not in it for any gain for yourself. It is about supporting and helping those women. So I guess to women that are feeling that and they might feel overwhelmed by all the changes you've said you've made, you didn't make them overnight. You made them slowly, and you're proof in the pudding that these things work.
Yeah, so 2 years on now, and in this big change, it's back in 2020, but it it it's been 5 years coming up. I just turned 45, so it's it's been a lot when I look back at what I was, but again, I've had to accept this is, my new change and be okay with it. Um, and yeah, you do look back, and I think we all do that phase. You look back at 30 and think, oh gosh. And that's why I always say, 30 you're so thriving, like, yeah, do everything yourself, so strong and eating. But I think this society is that these girls are, they don't want to go out drinking,
Yeah.
they're going home and getting ready to go to the gym the next day or something. They're doing challenges. It's brilliant and it really makes me happy. Again, for me, alcohol was a big thing. I'm not a big drinker anyway, but red wine was my only go-to. but the histamine in that, I could smell it and I'd failed drink after 2 sips. So like red wine had to go. So it's looking at all the little elements that build up to this big change. But I kind of do feel like you say, there was a lot to take in because I was like, oh gosh, I've always felt lucky that I've been, quite a slight person and I can still get into clothes, but I test myself. But it's sometimes I'm like, well, no, this is why I'm doing this now. I want to feel strong for our future me.
Yeah.
And it's showing the girls that exercise is really important and they do netball all the time and fit, but it's just I think it's as well challenging yourself to different things. And, I'm doing a 10K in a few weeks. I've not done one for 2 years, but I'm not probably going to do much training, but I'll get through it my own way and I'll feel like I've achieved that just for me again. But it's changing everything, isn't it? And maybe taking up new hobbies for yourself, but prioritizing you is so important. Looking into what this phase can be, it really can be the time to, thrive for yourself, put yourself first. We're always doing everything for everybody else. And just, if you want to do that dance class or take up a new hobby, do it. Don't hold back. Yeah, there's nobody, just pretend nobody's in the room with you, is giving it that kind of acknowledgement that we shouldn't be silenced and we really do need to be heard. But I do think for ourselves, it's everybody's journey is so different. That's what's fascinating about
Yeah.
it. It's the understanding of your own body and you and how your body works. To get to
I
know
love
you.
it.
It's your own masterpiece, as I say. It's your own piece of art.
I love it. I love it. Do you know, I could sit here and I could talk to you all day. Looking forward to meeting you in real life. We might just end up
Yeah.
talking all day. Um, what would be, I'm going to ask one final question, and then I
Yeah.
would love you to tell people where they can find you if they don't already follow you. What would be, I think, you've made it very clear, which I love, but what would be the piece of information that you would give to anybody, um, you know, I guess that's to your younger self. Like, what would be the piece of advice that you would give?
I would really say educate yourself and get awareness around everything about you and your body. It's fascinating, isn't it? And I say the body gives us the signs when we're hungry, we feed it. So it's all happening and it's all going on. So really engage with yourself. And I wish I had, but I left it. It's never too late, is it? But I wish I'd got more. You're not alone is really important. There's so many people that want to be there for you, listen to you, and also be there for yourself is the most important. Lean into yourself and be kind to yourself. I love the quote, "This too shall pass," and I feel that's where I'm at now. And I'm not sat here saying, everything's. I say I'm tweaking my journey. I like to use that. And with my hormone specialist, we say the recipe's right at the minute and all the ingredients are right. So let's stick with what we're doing. But that doesn't mean in 5 months' time something might happen and I might dip off. So it's kind of being really aware and being, okay with that where you're at really. And yeah, education is key. Research things. Don't just take someone's opinion. Like you say, this overwhelm, there's so much information, it's brilliant, but it's not right for everybody. So always go and speak to your GP. And if you go to that appointment and you feel like, you've not been heard, ask to see somebody else. I ask, is there a hormone specialist within your surgery? A bit of a postcode lottery, but there's so many great nurses who are trained in this as well. Ask, is there an endocrinologist there? Don't be afraid to ask those questions to get you supported. It really upsets me that people are having to go down the private healthcare route. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people are going. Um, that is sad, and I just hope that
Yeah.
that change will happen. But yeah, it's again, get to know you, really get engaged now with yourself and yeah, just be grateful for our bodies. They're bloody amazing.
I know. I love that. And isn't it just so funny how, and I think that so many women of our demographic who are kind of going through menopause at the moment will say that it takes a long time to understand how amazing our bodies are.
Yeah,
Yet we've done, for those that have had children, we have gone through childbirth and we still don't appreciate how amazing our bodies are. And we have to
yeah,
head into our 40s and, I'm 50 next year to really go, do you know what? This is amazing. This is a great time of life. But, Emma, thank you for what you're doing. The conversations you're having are amazing. The community that you have created is brilliant. Where can people find you if they don't
yeah.
already follow you to get your help?
Thank you. So it's Emma Neville. This is me on Instagram. I'm new to LinkedIn. I'm finding my feet around it. It's a bit more grown up and professional, and I'm like trying to navigate there. I'm on there also. I'm not on Facebook platform, but those are the two platforms that I like to use. And yeah, and hopefully, I'm going to be doing I'm going to do another This Is Me party this year, so hopefully I'll meet some of the lovely community. It was one of the best days of my life this year, just people connecting. That was my biggest takeaway from it. People were making friends, and I was like, oh, wow, this is huge. People coming alone and going out of the comfort zone, but they'd left with a friend who they could chat to. And I was like,
Yeah.
we really have got to find community. And like you say, even there's so many platforms where you can join onto these groups and just, look in your local area, go into your doctors and see if there's anything happening, ask the questions, but really don't feel alone. It can be a really, really lonely time, but we're all in this together. And as women, I think for me, there's nothing better than women supporting women. That just fills my cup all day long. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love it. Thank you so, so much
No,
for your
thank you for
time.
having me.
And I can't wait to meet you in real life.
Definitely look forward to that with a real cup of tea.
Yeah. Thanks, Emma.
Take care. Thank you. Bye bye.